Hello, so today we're going to be learning about how we can make a sinusoid specific to a particular time and place to see how much daylight hours and hours of night there is in that particular place. So first we're going to look at if these values are periodic in any way. And when we look at this table right here, we can see that despite all these different dates, there are no repeating numbers. However, even though there are no repeating numbers, we do know that this is in fact a periodic thing because the number of daylight hours in this particular place does not change over the course of a year. We can now find the amplitude by subtracting the longest day of the year by the midline, which becomes 3.1 hours. But the amplitude, since the cosine is negative, will actually be negative 3.1 hours because it will be going down. Now we will look for b, which has to do with the period. And we know the period is 1 year, or 365 days. And to get b, we do 2 pi over the period, so it becomes 2 pi over 365. Lastly, we're going to find h, the horizontal shift. So we know that since we started on December 31st, that is 10 days after the shortest amount of the year, so that's also the minimum, where originally a negative cosine would start. So we're going to then add negative 10 days, which would, in that case, eventually become a plus 10 in our equation. So our equation is h of t equals 3.1, negative 3.1 cosine of 2 pi over 365 of t plus 10 plus 12.17. To figure out our intersection points, or when the days will be that we'll have the average amount of daylight hours, we graph these two graphs on our calculator, which look pretty similar to this. We graph the h of t, which is like this blue line right here, and then we graph the midline, y equals 12.17. So once we figure that out, we learn that on the 81st day of the year, that we will have about a 12.17 hour day. And then we also learned that the second intersection point is about 263. First, let's start with how we can figure out when the 81st day of the year is, because, I mean, we don't count the days of the year like, oh, it's the 81st day of the year. So it will be the 81st day from December 31st. So we can count through going January, where there's 31 days, on to February, which is there's 28. Then we have 22 days left, and March is not any less than 22 days, as we know. So the 81st day would be on March 22nd. Now to find the second day of the year where there's an average amount of daylight. So we know from the intersection point that it's the 263rd day. Then we can count back from 365, since that's a bit closer than going from the beginning. So we'll start at 365, and we'll count back, so all of December, 31 days, and all of November, then all of October, all of September, and then we have 18 days left over by August. But since we are counting backwards, we have to subtract 18 from the total amount of days in August, which is 30. So once we subtract 18 from 30, we get 12, and we know that the other day would be August 12th. So that is it for our lesson today. I hope you feel a bit more knowledgeable about your sinusoids and the amount of daylight that we can see in Boston, Massachusetts. And I also hope you had a little bit of fun along the way. So thank you so much for listening.